1. This happened about a year ago, roughly April or May 2017, and I still cannot get it out of my head. I had been previously driving a 2010 car model. Both back ends were banged up, dented in. I was very ashamed of my car, like it was screaming to the world how screwed up I was. But I was miraculously saved with a new 2017 model to start leasing. Traded in my old car with dents, scratches, warts and all, and got brand new car to drive. Old car was beige and banged up. New car was shiny and black. I was sitting outside at a juice bar and my new car was parked right in front of me. All of a sudden I hear a man say, "Did you hit something?" I look up, and there's a man standing by my new car pointing exactly at the back spot where my dents were in my old car. Everything about the moment feels off. His tone is flat, and eerie and disembodied. He's staring at me while pointing at the spot in my car, arms stretched out like a weird statue. For only a split second do I feel confused. I'm almost ashamed of my dents before I realize he's talking about my old car. I immediately rule out the fear that it was someone who watched me regularly and knew my old car was banged up, and now he's playing with me. No, this just all felt weird. Because the moment felt off and not real, I just stared at him, not saying anything. He slowly turned his head towards where he was pointing. All of a sudden it was like something in him snapped. Like some spell was broken and he woke up. He blinked, looked around everywhere, disoriented. Suddenly seemed very freaked out where he was. Didn't know who was staring at him and why. He quickly ran off. Even then I knew with every fiber in my being I somehow witnessed a glitch in time and space. I can still hear his flat voice going, "Did you hit something?" Gives me chills. 2. One afternoon I was home with my 2 sons and their dad arrived home from work early. I had been about to text him a list of things I needed him to grab on the way home, so I thought, bugger it, let's run out and he can pretty much jump straight into my car. We'll all make the trip together. So we get outside and I tell him what's up, and he agrees and off we go. In the car when he got in he said, it's only 4 p.m, and I said, "I know babe, glad you're home early." We got to our first stop, which is 8 minutes drive from our house. I went in alone, grabbed 2 things, cake-making supplies, and went straight back to the car. Same shopping center has a supermarket, so my partner ran in, and I texted him a couple of things I needed. He has a bad memory, so I always text him stuff so he has the info at hand. And he was in and out pretty quick. As we left the shopping center, the time was 4:22, and said, "Score babe, that only took us 22 minutes. And he said, "Sweet, just straight home." And I said yes, nothing else needed doing. We came to a roundabout, which is about 2 minutes into the trip home, and for some reason, I took the first exit instead of the second exit. I didn't bother turning around because this way still gets us home. Just a few minutes slower because of a busy main road next to a motorway off-ramp. So we're coming up the hill to a set of lights that turns off towards our place, and could see up ahead that it looked empty. But as we came around the corner, I had to slam my brakes on, not to hit the traffic jam we just joined. My first thought was there'd been an accident, otherwise why would there be so many cars backed up? But the lanes going the other way were just streams of cars flowing freely, so I knew an accident didn't make sense. I made a comment to my partner that traffic is now ridiculous. Like, why would it be so packed when it's not even 4:30? My partner made a comment about how it looked like it was going to rain, as it was coming over dark and this was in summer, so only moments ago had been bright and blazing hot sun. I hadn't noticed this, but it made sense that maybe a rain cloud had come over. I then realized he had gone silent, so I looked over to him, and he's just looking at me. I asked what was the problem, and he just quietly says, "Or maybe it's getting dark because it's 7:30. I looked down at the clock, and sure enough, it's bang on 7:30. My mind was racing, trying to figure out how we'd messed up the time so badly, and could it just be my car? But I remembered having checked the time on the TV as he got home, and we had left straight away. I calmly asked how long we'd been out, hoping he would have an explanation, but he was just staring at me and replied, "You're the one who told me this had only taken us 22 minutes. We didn't talk the rest of the way home. Arrived home and thought, okay, I'm just gonna make the kids dinner and pretend this didn't happen. But they were tired and grumpy, usually in bed asleep at 7. And they weren't interested in food. I was going to ask if they'd already eaten, but was afraid they would say yes. We put them to bed and sat together for a bit, just with the TV going, not talking. I wasn't interested in dinner, but asked what my partner would like. And he just shook his head and said, "I don't feel like eating." So I thought, bugger this, I'm just going to address it. So I said, "What the fuck just happened?" And he sighed heavily and said, "I really don't know, babe. I thought we left at 4. We discussed it for a bit, and both of us agreed on everything that happened, and we couldn't figure out where we had lost all that time." Days later, I went to text him again, and saw that the message I sent saying butter, bananas, apples was sent at 4:15 p.m. I casually asked my older son, 6 at the time, what we did that night, and he said, "Got cake stuff and Dada went to the supermarket, and then we went home." So it's not like he can fill in the blanks either. Where the heck did 3+ hours go? 3. Ever since I was young, random objects have been appearing in our house. The earliest one I can remember is when I found a brand new Need for Speed game in our box of games when I was a kid. See, when I was young, me and my brother used to share a Nintendo DS Lite. We kept all the game cartridges in their original packaging in a blue box under the dresser. I remember it very specifically. I must have been about 9 when I found the game. I was looking for one of my own games when I saw this new Need for Speed game. My brother always played these, and sometimes he'd let me join in, or even borrow one. I knew exactly which ones he had, and this wasn't one of them. At first I just left it, figuring my mom must have bought it for him when I wasn't there. She always spoiled him. But after a few days or so I asked him whether the game was his. I showed him the box with the game in it, and he said no, it wasn't his, and he'd never even seen that version. I asked both my parents if they bought it for him, and they both denied. I even asked my aunt. She never had children, so she always bought stuff for us instead. She said she hadn't bought the game, and even if she had, how would it have ended up in the box? Only my mom, dad, brother, and I knew where we kept the DS games. Anyways, we never really solved this mystery, but we got a free game out of it, so that's cool. This sort of stuff happened a lot of times over the years. Some with logical explanations possible, others without making any sense. Another example I can think of occurred about 2 years ago. I was having a sleepover for my 16th birthday. A lot of my friends were there, and we had a lot of fun. But the next day, while cleaning up, we found this single sock on the ground that belonged to nobody. I knew for sure it wasn't mine, as it was one of those low sneaker socks, and I don't wear those. Also, I'm slightly obsessed with cool socks, so I definitely would have remembered it belonging to me. I asked everyone, even texted the people who had left earlier, but nobody recognized the sock. Again, we never solved it. What do you guys think this is? Personally, I like to think that there's some alternative universe where a parallel me had lost a DS game and a lone sock, and is now telling their story about objects disappearing from their house on a parallel version of this thread. I don't know if I really believe that. Actually, I do. No, I don't believe that. But it's sure fun to imagine. Edit. I just remembered another one of these. Funnily enough, also with a DS game. I had this game called Castle Clashers randomly show up in my DS case. This one appeared without any packaging. I played the game once when I discovered it, and it's one of those fantasy strategy games. I would never buy one of those, and neither would my brother. We were never into strategy games. I showed the game to my brother, and he said he'd never seen it before, and was just as weirded out as I am. 4. This was the weirdest thing. I was in rehab, again kind of hopeless, feeling like nothing would work for me. I set an honest intention one morning, and by dinner time something unexplainable happened. I had woken up early one morning and went outside to meditate. I said out loud positive affirmations, even though I believed none of them. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know it was something along the lines of, "I am impeccable with my word. I understand I am a drug addict. I am okay with being an addict and alcoholic. I am okay with staying sober. I believe in a higher power. I will find happiness. I will find love." And went about my day. It was a normal day, until I started walking to dinner where we ate. The rehab was an outside camp sort of thing, so we had to walk from our cabins to the lodge to eat. When I walked into the lodge, it was almost like there was a green filter over my eyes, and everything looked kind of smoky. I was completely sober, wasn't taking any meds or anything. Everything seemed slow motion, and my senses were really heightened. I thought maybe I was dehydrated. Before grabbing my tray, I sat my backpack down at a table of one of my friends sitting alone. When I went to go sit, she had moved tables, and I thought that was odd. She'd never leave me to sit alone. I sat, and this girl came and sat at my table and didn't say anything to me. It was almost like I was invisible. She has ketchup on her plate for her fries. And I was about to put some on mine when one of the nicest ladies who worked there came and asked a chick across from me to use the ketchup. She said yes, and then never brought it back, which seems like a small thing, but this lady is always so kind and mindful. It was strange she didn't ask if I needed to use it before she took it or brought it back for me. I swear I felt invisible. Like I was dead, but not in a scary way. I wasn't afraid, I was just really, really confused. I walked back to my cabin, and on the way there was this squirrel that was so close to me and staring at me. I tried to scare it off, but it didn't budge. When I kept walking, it followed all the way to my cabin. Then I was laying in bed and I literally thought I was dead, and I was thinking so hard on how I died, what happened, and where I was. There was this light coming in my window that was a bright white I'd never seen before, and was kind of smoky is the best way I can describe it. I was so convinced I was a ghost walking in this reality, where no one could see me, when my roommate came in the cabin and I asked, "Can you see me?" She said yes, and I told her what happened in the lounge, and she said she saw my backpack, but she never saw me. I go outside after this to smoke a cigarette. I'm sitting down and I see what I thought was a tiny spider coming down from its web because of how elegant and smooth it was gliding down. Turns out it was a baby dragonfly. When it got eye level with me, it stayed there for what felt like minutes. A baby dragonfly so close to my face, hovering right at eye level. It was almost like it was acknowledging me like the squirrel earlier. Someone came outside, and then the dragonfly flew away. It's so strange I cannot explain it. But since then I feel more connected to everything, people, animals, nature, including the wind. I always notice it now and kind of feel a part of it. I feel so much more connected to myself than I ever have. I can feel my own 2 feet on the ground, if that makes sense. And I feel like I jumped dimensions or something, because I could swear before it was almost like anything that could go wrong would go wrong. But after that, everything was going so unbelievably smoothly. Before, my checks would always have a hold or wouldn't read in the check reader. The ATM stole my cash. And then when I got out of rehab, I got a settlement from Lyft for $2,900 because someone hit my car, and when I went to the bank to cash it, I absolutely expected something to go wrong. But it cleared and went into my account immediately. Other things have happened unexplainably, like mental changes, self-image, etc. Can someone explain? I love it, don't get me wrong, but I'm so confused. 5. I think about this a lot. How everyone's choice around you growing up dictates the life you'll live when you're older. Here's a weird coincidence. Long story short, very small details. I've had the same best friend since I was 14. We all went to the same junior high. We were in different grade levels. People would always mistake us for each other, but we didn't even know each other. We have another best friend, C, who once met up at her school and asked if she was M's girlfriend, but she'd mistaken her for me. Neither of us knew her at the time either. Both best friends remembered this, and think it's ironic we all ended up being best friends. Same girl, C, was in the back of a picture that was taken of me in elementary school, in the perfect position to see her entire face. She had just moved to that school from California. A year later, she's in high school, and I'm still in junior high. My dad met this woman online who would later become my stepmom and bring along 3 kids who became my siblings. The older son meets my soon-to-be best friend who looks like me, and they developed crushes for one another. I see him chatting with her on MySpace at home and become interested in knowing her myself. I didn't know she was this girl I'd always got mistaken for in school. I message her about a band she posted about, and we bond over a shared interest in the same music genre. She finds out I'm actually her crushy stepsister. Of course, she wants to have a slumber party with me. We eventually figure out we're the girls that always got mistaken for one another. We're best friends now. We know everything about each other, and here is where it gets weird to me. I originally grew up in the place she originally started school. To keep it basic, we both moved around a lot due to our families. We were never in that town at the same time, but we both went to schools in that district. That would have transitioned us into the same school one year. I felt like the universe dragged us together, and that we are on many branches of another's alternate life stories. My dad meeting my stepmom live online, who brought my stepbrother into my life, who finally brought my soulmate best friend into my life. But if we both stayed in our original school district, would we have collided there? We still ended up in the same school district, but actually in the same school. I feel like if the series of events that played out didn't happen the way they did, it's possible we would have always been near each other without ever interacting. Edit. I met my current boyfriend only because of the same older stepbrother. He's 4 years older than me. And they became best friends in a shared class. If it wasn't for my stepbrother coming into my life because of our parents meeting online, I wouldn't have ever met my boyfriend due to our ages. We would have never met in high school, let alone knew each other existed. We've been together for 6 years and we live together now. Edit 2. Another sliver of weird info. I was in the room when my dad was online and saw my future stepmom was live online. He really wanted to message her, but was intimidated. She's too out of my league. My dad left the room and my oldest biological brother sat down and sent her a hey for him. My dad came back, nervous. And you know how that story ends. Fun facts, our moms have the same name. Boyfriend and stepbrother have the same middle name. 6. About 4 years ago, I was still living at home with my dad, and basically had the same routine every day. I would get up, feed my cat, get in the shower, change into my work clothes, and then go let my cat outside before I left for work. My cat Mia is an indoor and outdoor cat, so my dad would let her in when he got up a few hours later. We lived in the bottom floor of an apartment building, so we had a small fenced patio that was surrounded by an empty, overgrown lot. Our apartment had screens on all the windows and everything else was shut tight in order to keep the mosquitoes and bees out during the summer. The day started out like any other. I made my way to the kitchen and Mia came out running to her dish as soon as she heard the can open. I left her there, showered, changed, and came out to see her sitting in her usual spot over by the sliding glass door, waiting to be let out. Now I swear on all that is good in the world that what happened next is true. I let my cat out, watched her jump up in the fence, sit down, and I said, "Okay, Mia, be good. Love you." She ignored me, as cats do, and I closed the sliding screen door, and then the sliding glass door and locked it. I walked to my room to get my purse, and then I remembered I had made myself a sack lunch, so I headed back to the kitchen. As I turned to the fridge, I looked down and saw my cat sitting in front of her dish, eating her lunch. That's right. The cat I had just left outside was now sitting in front of her full dish of food in the kitchen. I stared at her for a good 20 seconds, and glanced nervously over to the sliding door that was still closed, screen door and all. I suddenly got a feeling that something was very wrong, so backed out of the kitchen and sped to work. What's worse is later that day I called my dad and he told me he had let Mia back in when he woke up like normal. It wasn't until years later that I discovered the glitch in the Matrix stories online. I'm still not sure what I saw, but I'm 100% sure that I saw it. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to what should have been 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories episode 69, but it wasn't long enough, so it's just 6 glitch stories. Big thanks to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Oh, an interesting bit of synchronicity. The author of story number 4 was in fact one of the friends mentioned in story number 5. Just a complete random coincidence that I happened to contact both of the authors. I liked both their stories, wanted to use both of them, and I knew from one that I would later that day get a response tell me I could use the other. Because they said, well, I think you're going to be doing one of my friends. I was like, well, I don't have the email. But it came a couple of hours later after I got that one. And there we go. It's just funny how things like that go. Okay, and with that, I think I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.